Okay, I'm live. Merry Christmas, everyone. Figured I'd Christmas it up a little bit tonight here on Mormon Book Reviews. Man, Christmas is upon us. It happened so quickly. What a crazy year this has been. This has actually been one of the most difficult years since I started the channel. And even though in some ways it was my best year, just considering all the news stories that we broke here at MBR, from the sale of the temple to all the interesting stuff going on with the LDS ward meeting in a LGBTQ affirming church facilities with banners up in Manhattan, and other different interesting stories that dozens more, including interviewing Nick Jones, the bishop that resigned in Mississippi at the pulpit. There's only two podcasts he went on. That was Mormon Book Reviews and Mormon Stories, and just had really interesting conversations with a ton of interesting people. And of course, I've been guests on many other programs as well. And it's been quite a year. So I just want to let people know, let me know in the chat if you can hear me loud and clear. This is a opportunity for you to interact with me live in the chat. Now, I do hope to start to eventually move over to StreamYard. I was actually talking to the Cultural Hall the other day on the phone, because I really like going on his live stream last week. I was like, okay, he knows what he's doing. I like what it looks very simple to do. And I think it's something I want to hop on and do. So I want to give it a couple more minutes while people are hopping on. We got a handful of people here. I'm not expecting a whole lot. I know a lot of people are traveling. Today's the day that a couple of people in my ward, I was going to drop off some desserts for them that my mom had made. And turns out they just landed in Utah to spend with their family. And I realized, of course, they would go back to Utah. That's where they're from. Lots of Utah transplants here in the Lakewood Ranch ward. Okay. So I wanted to just touch base on a few things. And also, if you'd like to make a contribution, now's the time to do it. If you want to make it in the chat, if you want to get a shout out for me, it's always appreciated. It's great. We just run things on a shoestring budget here. I tell people, I leave a lot of money on the table because I'm not doing this for the money. I could probably be bringing in a lot more money than I am, but I just don't want, this isn't about the money. It never has been, never will be. Also, just want to remind people to give a like to this as well, so that it gets in front of more people. Okay, so I just want to go here. So I wanted to start off with, so I titled this a few hours ago, Mom's Health Update, Christmas Greetings, and Justin Trudeau. I have some views on Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada. I'm going to be a little snarky, but I figured, might as well get it off my chest, and I'll get to that in a minute too. And I'm sure not a whole lot of people are interested in Canadian politics, but I am, and it's my platform, so I'm going to talk about Canadian politics for a few minutes tonight. I just want to let everybody know that, of course, I have been posting updates on Facebook as well as on the community page on YouTube about the status of my mom. My mom is doing very, very well. She's been cooking meals. She's been making these desserts, like I said, that she gives out. We gave them out to the garbage men, the recycler, the mail lady. So they got their annual card and thing from us, and they always give us good service throughout the year, including our recycler actually brings our can all the way up to the carport. He gets out of the truck and runs it up to the carport almost every Friday when he does that. So that's really cool. And Mom was in between rehab and the hospital. She was in there for 4 weeks, and she was released this past Sunday, 4 weeks to the day that she broke her hip. So this week is the first week that she's been back since all this is happening. She's already had 2 therapy sessions done this week, and they tell her she's way ahead of everybody. And so she's doing really, really well. And so I'm grateful for that. And she's doing well. So Cultural Hall says, hey, Stephen. Hey, Colt. Hey, I just wanted to say, I wanted to say this about Cultural Hall. While you're listening, Colt, now that I know you're here, I actually wanted to say something. And I meant to tell you this on the phone. Last week, you interviewed me. And originally, we were just planning on doing it for an hour. And you even accommodated me by doing it a half hour earlier, 9:30 Eastern, just for that. And then I ended up staying for over 2 hours. And then he did an after show as well. And I stayed in there for another hour. So I was in that conversation for over 3 hours. And the reason why was because I enjoyed the conversation. And I thought, Colt, you did a really good job in the interview. I thought that you were very engaging. I think that you were good at pressing on me. I thought that you're also very fair, but you're also a very pleasant person to talk to. And I tell people there are some interviews I'm in, like, it's a bad interviewer, and it's like, I want to get out of here as soon as possible. Like, I don't want to do this any longer than I promised. But I just want to say, Cultural Hall, I know, of course, you're you're an ex-Mormon, and I know there's some faithful Mormons that aren't, wouldn't appreciate your stuff. But as a human being, Colch, I just want to say that you've been good and kind to me, just like Jacob Hansen has. And I know you're not a big fan of his, but I also want to say that I think you do a really good job. I think you've got a good knack for interviewing people, and that's not easy. It's not easy. It's very frustrating for me actually to watch a lot of these programs because I just feel like, oh, they didn't ask the follow-up question I would. So sometimes I just have a hard time watching a lot of other podcasters because they don't know what they're doing when it's asking good questions. And I feel that Cultural Hall does a good job with that. And then one of these days we'll get together and you can show me how to use StreamYard, and I'll start streaming there live like you do, because I really understand it and get it, how it works so much better in that format than in this crappy format that YouTube provides us. Thanks, Cultural Hall says the fueling is mutual. Now, I expected there wouldn't be a whole lot of people jumping on because this is when people are traveling, so I don't expect this to be a very long one, but I just wanted to say my mom's doing well. Thank you for everything. We really appreciate it. Also, just want to remind everybody that this Tuesday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, I will be along with a huge cavalcade of stars throughout the Mormon scholarly community, as well as podcast community and influencers. We are going to be doing a live stream on Radio Free Mormons program, co-hosted by Bill Reel. And we got us ourselves scheduled. And actually, because I'm in the Eastern time zone, they actually have me scheduled first. So at 6 p.m. Mountain Time this Tuesday, we're going to be doing a Christmas Eve special stream. And it's involving dozens and dozens and dozens of well-known people. We all got 3 minutes to talk. I did it last year for the inaugural run and had a really good time. And I look forward to doing it this Tuesday again. Go to the Mormon Discussions Inc.'s YouTube channel, and you'll see that there's a link there, and you could put a notification for that when it comes again. Andrew SD says, here again. Andrew SD, welcome. Okay, so let's see. Andrew, okay, so Andrew SD asks, not sure you're following the international news a lot, but what do you think of the Syrian situation and the fears of Syrian Christians? Okay, actually, I do follow international news. That's why I even mentioned Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister. I'm going to go and do a little rant on him in a minute. One of the things that I think was really what was devastating to the Christian communities in the Middle East was there was relative stability in the Middle East. Look, Saddam Hussein's right-hand man was a Christian. His foreign secretary, I forget his name, he was a Christian. So there were Christians in Saddam Hussein's government. Okay, so Christians were a protected minority in Iraq. And then all hell broke loose, and they're not as protected as they once were. In Syria, Assad protected the Christian community. Now, I'm not justifying these are dictators and they're evil men, no question, but at least the Christian minorities were protected, okay? And actually played a really important role in providing stability in those societies. And unfortunately, when you get these radicals in there, you just don't know what this is going to do to the Christian community. Unfortunately, the evangelicals are so focused on Israel that they don't ever think of the Christians in the Middle East as well. And I think that's to our detriment. There are many Christians that are suffering in the Middle East, and we should remember them during this Christmas season. So yeah, they have a lot of good reasons to be fearful about what could be happening. And but I also see that a lot of Syrians are flying back to Syria, and they're optimistic. And I imagine that's Christians that are flying back too. So maybe this is, I don't know. I can't be too optimistic about things happening in the Middle East because it's such a mess there and a quagmire. But we can just be hopeful during this time of year. So Andrew SD, thanks for asking for my opinion on the situation in Syria. Again, I dabbled in politics, and I do try to stay up to date on international news and all that kind of stuff. And so I just wanted to also just state that I'll be interviewing. I just want to give some previews real quick. I'll be interviewing Kyle Bashirs and Stefan Traeger sometime in January. We decided to bump that up and move it into January for scheduling reasons. But I also wanted to preview that I just had an interesting telephone conversation with somebody who had actually posted something in Reddit about some interesting developments within Christian nationalism vis-a-vis the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and evangelicals. And I talked with this person on the phone, and it was a fascinating conversation. And we're going to tape something after the holidays because I think it's a real important conversation to talk about the rise of Christian nationalism and how it relates to evangelical or Christian nationalism and how it relates to similar movements within the Latter-day Saint tradition as well, because you do have nationalist movements that are part of the um, the restoration. And so I think it's important that we have this conversation. I have this really good, interesting person that I had a first time talk to him on the phone today, and I thought, yeah, this is definitely something worth pursuing. And so we'll be having that conversation next month as well. So still working on a few things. I wish I could share more stuff that I'm working on, but then again, I'm still shocked that it's been 3 weeks ago today that I talked about the purge that's going on of not Orthodox, but of progressive and LGBTQ friendly staff, professors at BYU. I was under the impression that 3 weeks ago this weekend, the story written by Peggy Fletcher Stack, the Salt Lake Tribune, would have been released. And she had been working on the story for a few months. I was as well, and actually would have broken the story months ago if it wasn't for all the hurricanes that were happening. And that caused basically 2.5 months of programming to just not be able to be produced because of all the issues with my health as well as with the hurricanes. They did well. Culture Hall says that did well, Steve. I think it got over 3,000 views. Oh, wow. That's great. Okay, awesome. I'm assuming the live that we did. And so I'm surprised that story has not still been broken. So I'm just wondering what's going on. I've been thinking about maybe reaching out to some of my sources and say, hey, what's going on? What's the delay in the story here? Because typically this is not the time of year that you would be breaking stories because people aren't paying attention to the news during the holiday season. So is this story going to be pushed back into January? I don't know. It's really an interesting development. And honestly, I wouldn't have gone. I mean, I would have, because there was a few more people I wanted to talk to. But there was one person I had to talk to before I talked about this, and I was able to talk to them. So I felt like, okay, at least I can give the perspective or what my sources are telling me. And then people then can look at what Peggy Fletcher Stack was posting on the Salt Lake Tribune as well. Okay, well, if there's anybody in the chat would like to share with me what they're planning on doing this Christmas, I'd love to hear what you're doing, or if you want to put them in the comments later on. Also, if you want to make a contribution to the channel, this would be a good time to do it in the chat if you want to get a shout out. Also, a reminder to give a button to this, so a thumbs up on this so that it will get in front of more people. So now let me just wrap this up and talk. Oh, one last thing I have to say. I am a very big Chicago sports fan, okay? I root for all the teams except for the White Sox. And I'm also a real big fan of Chicago sports media, especially in particular Chicago sports talk radio, which I've been listening to since I was in high school. And I've been in touch with one of the biggest names in Chicago radio sports history, who recently came out with a book about the Chicago Bears. And I've been in touch with his publisher, and I'm arranging to do an interview with this person. And then he reached out to me. He's like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like the dog that's, caught the car. Like, what do I do? Like, I got to start another channel. I'm not starting another channel I'm going to move away from this one, but I want to do like a little side project, a little side quest in which I interview various Chicago sports media personalities that I grew up with. And it's really exciting to do that. It's Cultural Hall says, go Cubbies. Yep. Go Cubs, go. Yes, that's my childhood team there. That and the Chicago Bears, the 85 Bears were really big. The 84 Cubs were. And so I got I've been conversing with him. He just wrote a book about the Chicago Bears. It just came out last month, and I'm going to have him come on to talk about the book and also talk about his career. So I'm excited about that. His name is Dan McNeil, and he's a legendary Chicago broadcaster, and we're in the preliminary stages of getting that out there. So I'm really excited about this. I know most of you don't care. This is just my little hobby. And then to end it up with Justin Trudeau. Okay, folks, let me just say, I'm not wearing red because this is the red colors of the Liberal Party of Canada. I'm wearing red because it's Christmas, but it appears that Justin Trudeau's government is about to collapse. He's been in power for 9 years now. He preceded the Conservative Party that was led by Stephen Harper, which by all accounts was a very solid administration. Most people think that Stephen Harper was a very competent prime minister and was a very steadying influence on the country. Now, what's going to happen basically is he's going to receive a vote of no confidence right in January. And there's a push to do a vote of no confidence and basically that ends the Liberal government, which is a minority government. So their partner, their Liberal partner, the NDP, or Progressive partner, the New Democrat Party, the leader of that party, Jagmeet Singh, I think, announced that they are no longer going to be supporting the Liberal government, as well as the Bloc Québécois. I forget, I don't know how to pronounce it, but that's the Bloc. That's the French-speaking group in Quebec. They're also going to pull out. And of course, the Conservative Party has for a very long time been wanting to have a vote of no confidence. Now, I'm being apolitical here, but I just want to say from this perspective, and I will say I'm kind of a right of center guy, just so people can more with a real strong libertarian, streak and be libertarianish. I'm glad to see Justin Trudeau go because there's something about him that I cannot stand. He's like one of those people, like we have this thing, like, who would you have a beer with? And that would be somebody, if I saw him sitting at the bar, I would go to another bar. He is one of the most obnoxious, entitled people on the world scene, who I really think damaged Canada's reputation in some ways. He was in many ways a very weak leader. And he has this penchant for dressing in these lavish costumes and also doing blackface, and on at least two occasions, even doing blackface. He kind of lost a lot of credibility when he took a trip to India and dressed up in all these fancy costumes, and it was just really weird. He's a showman. He likes to dress up, but I just don't care for the guy on a personality level. He's the kind of person that I would not have had anything to do with growing up if we were in the same social circles. I would not want to be his friend. I just there's something about on a personal level I find so grating. So for me, I'm just kind of glad to see him leave the world stage and enjoy your life, Justin. And again, I'm not being political here. I'm just talking on a personal level. Justin Trudeau, I'm glad to see that the Canadian people are throwing you out. Now, what is this bold? I don't know what this means for Canada, but I do think, from my understanding, Pierre Poilievre might be a stronger prime minister. That might be able to put Canada in a stronger negotiating place, because on January 20th, they will be adding tariffs to 25% of all goods coming out of Canada. And so they need a strong leader that can negotiate on behalf of their people. And it appears to me that Pierre Poilievre, or PP, is going to be the person that's going to do it. And hopefully he will be the strong leader that in many ways Justin wasn't. Justin flew down to Mar-a-Lago right away as soon as Donald Trump invited him, and then he goes and says, "Oh yeah, Justin, you should be the governor of the 51st state of America," and then tweets that. I mean, that's a very weak position for them to be in. So I think Pierre is probably going to be a stronger person to take on Trump and negotiate on the behalf of the Canadian people. My Canadian friend, Andrew says, SD says, my Canadian friend calls him Papa Trudeau. Yeah. So either way, that's just my little thing on Pierre Trudeau. Not a big fan. I always found him very irritating, very arrogant, and not somebody I would have a beer with. I said it. Okay. So that's where I'm at. So it looks like the Canadian government will be collapsing, and we will have a new elections coming up soon. In Canada, we want to keep our friends to the north in our prayers. Of course, we just came through a very tumultuous election ourselves. So Americans could certainly use the prayers throughout the people of the whole world. But let's just remember this. Jesus is the reason for the season. I hope you have a blessed Christmas. For those of you who are not Christians, but there's other holidays that you're celebrating, or you pagans who are doing the winter solstice, I wish you a happy winter solstice. But for most of us, many of us celebrate Christmas, and I just want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, of course, too, because that's on the same day as Christmas. So I want to give a shout out to my Jewish friends as well. I hope you guys have a wonderful Hanukkah. And this was fun. I know this is a very light weekend when it comes to people watching, so we didn't have a whole lot of people in here, but we'll have a few people. I just want to say, if you want to leave in the comments, tell us what your Christmas traditions are. I'd love to hear them. I always love to hear the different Christian Christmas traditions out there. 20 minutes in, I think that's good enough for now. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Again, I will see you Tuesday at the Mormon Discussions YouTube channel for their Christmas Eve spectacular. I don't know when I'll be releasing anything. Maybe I'll release some shorts, but my next interview probably won't be released until next Thursday after Christmas and in between New Year's. So I got some college football playoff game to watch tonight, Notre Dame versus Indiana, which is for my home state. So I got to watch that game. Culture Hall says, take care, Steve. Thanks for joining us in the conversation. Remember, this is the most important thing. All the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.